Top 10 most common mistakes that are made when updating your classic vehicle. Number 1, over lowering your suspension. It happens. Dropping the car too aggressively can ruin your handling. It can create more bump steer, lessen your travel, and make the car just handle poorly. A lot of companies, they build from really nice kits, and they do offer suggestions on wheel and tire sizes that all fit your car correctly and the ride height. What happens is often people will put the kits on their car and it sits lower than they wanted, so they raise it up. And outside of that, it runs poorly. Or they put it on the kit and it doesn't sit low enough, so then they lower it down more. And then it also rides poorly. So number 2, mismatch between your power and your chassis. Often swapping in a lot more horsepower in your car sounds like a lot of fun. But then what happens is this car was really built, or whatever car you're driving was really built for about a 300 horsepower motor. That's it. Not any of the current stuff you're putting onto it. So you put in a big cam and big headers and you got 500 horsepower. Your brakes and your chassis, they're not going to work well. The car is going to be out of control, unstable, hard to drive. Not a lot of fun. Sounds great though. Number 3, cheap aftermarket parts. Low quality suspension parts, bushings, and steering components may get you in there because they're a bargain, but they'll make the car unstable and unsafe to drive. Number 4, poor brake upgrades. I've seen this often. These guys want to put big brakes on your car. I dig that. And they start trying to cut corners and save money. Oh, I'm only going to put disc on the front, not on the back. I'm not a race car. Oh, I can use the original master cylinder and booster. And oftentimes what happens is the mismatch of components just doesn't work. You'll put it on the car and you have these great brakes that are on there from your top manufacturer, and you're still trying to power it with your 1960s master cylinder. Parts are going to fail. And then you have to look at your power component. Do you have enough vacuum to run it if you have a booster? And if not, are you going to go, manual? So plan your brakes out ahead of time. Don't just say, I'm going to throw big brakes on there. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Does it fit your wheels? Does it fit your tires? Does it fit your driving? Does it fit the rest of the components of the car? Number 5, wrong wheel and tire combo or setup. Choosing an oversized wheel and not accounting for suspension travel, wheel opening sizes, tire size even. A 275 from one company is wider than a 275 from another company. The measuring everything is important. Getting your backspace is correct. Not doing it right, it's going to rub. You limit your suspension travel, limit your turning radius. You can even make the car feel slow and sluggish. You put a big 22-inch wheel on this car, without the proper gearing, it's going to be just terrible. And I've seen it. I've seen them roll into shows and 22s and 20s, and they've got all kinds of horsepower, and the car just drives terrible. So get it as a package. Number 6, ignoring proper cooling. You're upgrading your car. Modern motors, modern components create way more heat than the old small block Chevy or 6-cylinder motor that you had in the car, or whatever else was in there original. So now that it's creating more heat with that modern motor, failing to upgrade your cooling components, such as your radiator, your fans, adding an oil cooler, You know, a lot of modern motors from the factory came with power steering coolers and oil coolers. And when we swap them over, oftentimes those coolers are completely ignored. You know, if you're pulling a motor out of a 2005 GMC Sierra, it probably has an oil cooler on it, but you're going to put a bypass oil pan on there and skip that whole thing. That engine wants an oil cooler as well as the radiator cooling to help maintain its correct temperature, but it's often ignored. So when you upgrade, look at what coolers you can add. All those ancillary coolers help. Overcomplicated electronics. Swapping in your new fuel injection system and additional components is really cool. But expecting your 50-year-old wire harness to support all of that is not practical. That little glass tube fuse block that's on there is not going to handle the electric fans, the fuel injection, the fuel pump, and everything else, at least not for long or not very efficiently. It does create what they call dirty current, and it makes it harder to tune, and it makes it unreliable. Upgrade the rest of the electronics with it. Number 8, cutting up the original frame. Some modifications do require you to cut the frame, but often they'll have reinforcements, or you need to reinforce the frame to make it safe again. Cutting it up and not reinforcing it or not knowing what you're doing is probably one of the most dangerous things I've ever seen. I worked for a company and we got to scale and weigh a lot of cars, and the number of cars I crawled underneath to look at shock mounts and control arm mounts with just terrible reinforcement or none was just scary. If you're going to start cutting stuff up, figure out how to reinforce it or have a shop do it for you. Number 9, thinking that it'll be easier, faster, and cheaper for you to re-engineer the products that go on your car. You know, 15 years ago, that was probably correct. Even 10 years ago, that was correct. But right now, these companies have spent so much time building, and you can literally build a pro touring car or a race car on a catalog, order it in, and build it over a weekend. You know, build suspension on one weekend, the next weekend you put in a motor, the weekend after that you put in a cage and some harnesses, and you got a car. You can race like crazy. So don't try and re-engineer the wheel, because man, the wheel is still a wheel, and it needs to be put on. Now, number 10, this is a big one. Ignoring weight distribution. This happens when you start piecemealing a car together piece by piece. That's what they call piecemeal, right? So, you know, you put a big motor in it and it doesn't handle it, right? Because the horsepower is just being put to the ground too hard. And then you switch over and you put a 4-link in the back, which is awesome. But now you got way too much traction in the back and it doesn't turn in the front. Ah, man. Why? Because you've got all the weight distribution and stuff scattered around. So then you start doing the front suspension, and you're trying to catch up to what the back was doing. And in the meantime, your big motor's still pumping power. And now you got great suspension, great motor, and all your brakes are messed up. It's literally looking at the car as a complete package. Okay, that's 10. I could probably come up with 30 or 40 more. And in the comments, I'm sure there'll be more. But those are the most common ones I see here at the shop over the last 5 years. So thanks again for watching. It's been fun, and like, subscribe, share with your friends. Let's talk about it and give me some more ideas, stuff to do. Thanks. Bye.